Welcome to the News El Salvador SV podcast. Welcome to the Noticias El Salvador SV podcast, a space for conversation and reflection where we jointly explore current affairs from El Salvador and the world. Your donations to the project are accepted via PayPal and Bitcoin QR. Find US on your favorite platform. Search for us as News El Salvador SV. And now you can also look for our sister podcast, Documentaries of El Salvador, where you will find cases and stories that you will surely find interesting. Remember to follow, share, and comment. If you wish to do business with us, the email address is available. Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we are facing just a really powerful confluence of events. We have global financial volatility, we have some incredibly high stakes geopolitical maneuvering, and then, of course, critical domestic policy shifts right here in El Salvador. Our mission today is to analyze this complex stack of sources. We're looking at everything from crypto charts to what are essentially presidential ultimatums and deliver a clear understanding of the forces that are, shaping your world right now.
It's a moment of extreme instability. I think that's the word for it, globally and regionally. And you really can't afford to look at the sharp drop in digital assets as something separate from the decisions being made in, say, Washington or Kiev.
Right, they're all connected.
Exactly. Nor can we view a local infrastructure project, like an airport renovation, as isolated from international lending practices or global investor confidence. We are going to connect these dots for you, focusing squarely on the financial and the strategic implications of every single headline.
Okay, let's start with what feels like the biggest financial headline of the moment. This seismic event that's shaking global markets. The cryptocurrency correction, Bitcoin, which is, the bellwether for the whole space, has hit 7-month lows. It's a period of really intense, sustained selling pressure. What does the data tell us about the immediate situation?
We are looking at a market in a full-blown retreat. there's no other way to put it. Bitcoin is trading right near that $85,000 mark.
85,000.
Yes. We've seen it fluctuate, between 84.8 and 85,300, which in euro terms is around 74,000. And while, in historical context, those figures still seem high.
Of course.
The speed of the decline is the primary concern here. Our analysis shows that November 2025 is shaping up to be the worst monthly slump Bitcoin has faced since the depths of the 2022 crypto winter, specifically June of that year.
And comparing this period to June 2022 that's significant. I remember that time. It was marked by widespread bankruptcies, panic selling, companies just imploding.
Total contagion.
Exactly. So what makes this current correction, which is registering over a 25% loss in value this month alone, what makes it so particularly painful, and how does it differ from those previous drawdowns?
Well, the 25% plus loss highlights that severe volatility, yes, but the key distinction this time is the environment. In 2022, we were dealing with, as you said, contagion risks. It was about failing centralized exchanges, bad actors within the crypto space itself.
It was an internal problem.
It was an internal problem, precisely. Today, this correction feels less about a crypto-specific risk and more about a generalized macroeconomic fear. It suggests that institutions are reacting very strongly to this higher-for-longer interest rate environment we keep hearing about.
So they're getting nervous about the broader economy, and crypto is the first thing they sell.
It's often the most liquid and, in their view, the riskiest asset. So yes, they're calculating correlation risk across their entire portfolio. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the pain is systemic. It's not isolated to Bitcoin. We are seeing generalized losses across the entire digital asset ecosystem. Ether and numerous other major altcoins are registering double-digit weekly drops. This signifies a widespread, deliberate risk-off strategy among the major holders.
You bring up institutions, and that's a key point. In previous cycles, when prices crashed, you'd hear this mantra from retail and sometimes even from institutions to buy the dip. They saw it as a buying opportunity. What is the institutional sentiment right now? Are they still seeing value at $85,000?
The evidence strongly suggests that institutional money is not only not buying, it's actively retreating. We have recorded significant net outflows from the Bitcoin exchange-traded funds, the ETFs, in the United States.
So these are the big regulated funds.
The very same. And these outflows are the clearest indicator we have that institutions are not buying the dip this time around. When you see capital bleeding from ETFs, it often signals a deliberate de-risking strategy. Institutional treasuries are choosing to liquidate their digital asset holdings rather than increase their exposure.
So the smart money is heading for the exits.
Or at least taking a significant amount of chips off the table. This sentiment shift is what makes the current drop so dangerous. That institutional support, which was so key to the rally we saw earlier this year, has, for the moment, vanished.
So if that institutional floor is disappearing, what are the technical levels that analysts are watching? Where could we potentially find some stability? What are the price points that mark the difference between, a harsh but necessary correction and a potential collapse?
Okay, so technical analysts are laser focused on a handful of critical support thresholds. The immediate one, the psychological and technical barrier we are currently testing, is that $85,000 level. A sustained move below this requires serious attention.
And if that doesn't hold?
Should that fail to hold, the next key level is $80,000. That often acts as a major round number psychological support. People see the round number and think, okay, this is a good place to buy.
But there's a more critical one, isn't there?
There is. The final, most crucial threshold for long-term stability is $77,424.
That's a very specific number. Why that one?
It's so vital because a breach below that $77,424 level could trigger cascade liquidations. You have to remember, many investors who bought in during the earlier part of the year are using leverage.
So they're borrowing to buy.
Exactly. And a drop below that point could trigger margin calls or automatic stop losses that would force selling, which pushes the price down further, which triggers more selling. It's a vicious cycle. So these levels are absolutely critical for determining if the correction has fully flushed out the what they call the weak hands.
Given this intense pressure and what you're describing as an institutional exodus, is there any credible voice out there still projecting a recovery? Or is the market just universally pessimistic as we head into the end of the year?
It's interesting, there's a divergence, which always makes for a fascinating market. Despite the current turmoil, some long-term analysis maintains a fundamentally bullish outlook. For example, Standard Chartered, a major bank, is still projecting a possible rebound toward the end of 2025.
So they see this as temporary.
They view this intense decline as a necessary cleansing phase. Their thesis often hinges on things like the anticipation of the next Bitcoin halving event, which naturally restricts supply or renewed institutional adoption once these macroeconomic pressures finally ease up. So while the immediate term is painful, the long-term prognosis, according to some major banks, remains positive. The timing of that recovery, however, is, well, that's heavily debated and very uncertain.
It's compelling to see such extreme volatility in this new asset class, but it's not just digital assets facing this kind of pressure. You pointed out a detail earlier regarding traditional commodities, specifically sugar. We have a warning from the International Sugar Organization, the OIA, that short-term investors are driving down the price.
Yes, and this is an excellent point of comparison. It demonstrates how speculative behavior impacts diverse markets. The OIA's warning signifies that investors who are driven by short-term momentum, maybe algorithmic trading, are placing significant downward pressure on sugar prices.
And these aren't people who are actually going to take delivery of the sugar.
Not at all. Unlike long-term commodity investors, these short-term players are generally unconcerned with the fundamental dynamics, things like global crop yields, logistics costs, or long-term demand. They're just trading the price action.
What are the consequences of that?
The consequences, though maybe less dramatic than a 25% crypto crash, are severe for the physical market. This kind of speculation disrupts the stable price discovery that producers and refiners need to run their businesses. It leads to instability in a foundational, real-world supply chain. It just goes to show you that the pursuit of fast profits creates fragility, whether the underlying asset is a digital token or a bag of raw sugar.
The thematic connection is clear. Short-term capital, prioritizing momentum over the actual fundamentals, a very risky game. Let's transition now to global security and politics. And we'll start with a serious and protracted security concern in South American airspace. The United States Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA, has issued a NOTAM, that's a notice to aviators warning pilots about a severely risky security environment across Venezuelan airspace. Specifically, it covers the Maiquetía Flight Information Region, or FIR.
This FAA action is a major red flag, and its implications are widespread for any kind of regional air travel. The warning itself cites worsening conditions and a measurable increase in military activity, both within Venezuela and around its borders.
And for the FAA to issue a comprehensive NOTAM like this, it's not something they do lightly.
Absolutely not. It means they have credible, specific intelligence suggesting that the risk of collateral damage or even interception is elevated. This is not your standard weather advisory. It's a security directive with real weight behind it.
What are the concrete dangers that the FAA is citing? And why are they keeping this advisory in place for several months? That seems like a long time.
The NOTAM is explicit in its breadth. It warns that these worsening conditions pose risks to aircraft at any altitude.
Any altitude, so that includes commercial flights at 35,000 feet.
It does. This includes high-altitude commercial flights that are merely transiting the area, as well as lower-altitude maneuvers for takeoff and landing. And furthermore, the advisory even mentions the potential for harm to airports and to aircraft that are just sitting on the ground.
So they're worried about attacks on airports themselves.
That's the implication.
Yeah.
It suggests that the scope of military or paramilitary activity extends beyond simple aerial patrols. This, it raises an important question about the stability of regional flight routes that connect North and South America. And crucially, as you mentioned, the advisory is active from November 21st, 2025 until February 19th, 2026.
3 months.
3 full months. That extended duration suggests that United States officials do not anticipate a swift de-escalation of this heightened security environment. They anticipate persistent risk throughout the critical winter travel season.
That extended time frame really underscores the persistent instability in the region. Now let's pivot to what is arguably the most critical diplomatic front in the world right now, the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. The pressure on Ukrainian President Zelensky appears to have escalated dramatically, framed now as an ultimatum tied to a specific peace proposal.
This situation, it really eliminates the immense leverage being applied by the United States at what is a truly crucial juncture. Former President Donald Trump asserted that peace between Russia and Ukraine is nearing, but it's conditional. It's conditional on President Zelensky's acceptance of a proposed 28-point plan from the United States.
So it's not a negotiation, it's a take-it-or-leave-it offer.
The underlying message is stark. Accept this framework now or the conflict continues, and this is the key part, potentially without guaranteed United States support. Trump then added a specific warning, referencing the coming cold winter, urging Ukraine to hurry its response.
The reference to the winter. That clearly moves this from diplomatic negotiation to a form of strategic ultimatum. What is the implied threat there, and what could be in this 28-point plan that makes acceptance such a difficult choice?
The winter reference is pure leverage. It's a tool of pressure. It implies that if Ukraine refuses the plan, they risk facing the most difficult part of the year, when energy reserves are low and military logistics are most strained, without the full backing and resupply of their most powerful ally.
They'd be on their own.
Effectively, yes. As for the 28-point plan, while the precise contents are confidential, a document like that, drafted by a powerful external actor during a ceasefire discussion, almost certainly demands profound, painful concessions.
Like what? What are we talking about?
These points likely entail territorial adjustments, perhaps solidifying Russian control over regions they already occupy. They might also require explicit political concessions, such as guaranteeing Ukraine's long-term military neutrality.
So no NATO.
No NATO, no European Union integration, maybe even easing some of the international sanctions against Russia. These demands inherently challenge Ukraine's sovereignty and the national principle they've been fighting for, which is fighting for every inch of their territory.
This analysis provides the necessary context for President Zelensky's reaction. What exactly did he say? What is the nature of his stated dilemma?
Zelensky confirmed that Ukraine is facing one of its most difficult moments since the start of the large-scale invasion. He's confronted with a terrible choice. On one hand, accepting these difficult 28 points risks what he calls the loss of dignity, the feeling of being forced into capitulation under duress, yielding territory, and potentially freedom. This is what he links to the horror of facing the worst winter.
And the other side of that choice.
On the other hand, rejecting the plan means risking the loss of a key partner, the United States, and thereby jeopardizing essential military and financial aid. The consequences of standing firm could include not only facing an extremely difficult winter on the battlefield, but also risking the long-term prospect of living without freedom, dignity, or justice if their defense ultimately fails because they run out of resources. It's a classic dilemma of political realpolitik versus national honor.
It's clear that this is a period of intense, high-level diplomatic engagement by the United States, and that pattern seems to extend regionally. We should note that Trump also mentioned he intends to speak soon with Venezuelan President Maduro to tell him something very specific.
And that detail is very revealing because it demonstrates a willingness to engage directly with leaders in politically complex regions, even those typically considered adversaries. The specific nature of that conversation is unknown, of course, but it links this geopolitical maneuvering in Eastern Europe back to the broader regional diplomatic map. It reinforces the active, direct role the United States is taking in attempts to reshape or, stabilize global power dynamics. It's all part of the same strategic recalibration.
Turning our attention now to El Salvador. Let's begin with key infrastructure development, specifically a major financing package that was just approved by the Inter-American Development Bank.
This is a critical investment signal for the country. The Inter-American Development Bank, or BID, has approved $195 million. And this money is specifically earmarked for modernizing the international airport of El Salvador.
And an airport is never just a travel hub, is it?
It's pure economic infrastructure. This investment is crucial because it directly addresses bottlenecks in two key areas. First, cargo handling, which is essential for high-value exports and for participating in global supply chains. And second, tourism capacity. It aligns perfectly with the national strategy to attract more international visitors and the foreign currency they bring.
So this loan from the BID, it's a sign of confidence.
It is.
Yeah.
Modernizing the airport signals external confidence in El Salvador's stability and its future growth trajectory. It's a big vote of confidence.
And accompanying this infrastructure focus, the Minister of Economy announced some significant plans for regional industrial expansion.
This is a major policy move, and it's aimed at correcting historical economic imbalances within the country. The minister announced to legislators a feasibility study for establishing free zones. You can think of them as special economic industrial zones in the eastern part of the country,
which has traditionally been less developed.
Exactly. Historically, economic activity has been heavily concentrated in the central and western regions. This expansion aims to decentralize industrial growth, providing job creation and investment opportunities in areas that have, as you said, traditionally lagged behind. And
this seems to be part of a bigger picture regarding investment.
It is. This initiative is particularly important because it complements the government's claimed 118% increase in foreign investment during the first 6 months of 2025. It suggests a successful effort to attract international capital and then strategically direct it to diversify the industrial footprint across the entire territory.
Let's delve a bit deeper into how El Salvador is trying to position itself globally in technology. There's a fascinating, very specific detail that came out regarding high-tech manufacturing and artificial intelligence infrastructure.
What's genuinely fascinating here is the strategic focus on what you might call leapfrogging into advanced technology. We have this specific detail that a young person from Soyapango will be assisting in the assembly of NVIDIA B300 chips.
And for our listeners, these aren't just any computer chips.
No, this is not a small detail. These are specialized, high-performance computing chips. They are essential for cutting-edge artificial intelligence and for massive data processing capabilities. For El Salvador to position itself to acquire and actually utilize these chips, it places it at the forefront of regional AI infrastructure.
So this is about more than just assembly jobs.
Oh, absolutely. This small technical detail underscores a massive strategic leap into high-tech manufacturing and digital asset infrastructure. It signals a deliberate effort to move beyond basic assembly and start capturing higher-value technological processes.
And this technological leap is being supported on the regulatory side as well, correct?
It is, and that's crucial. The National Commission of Digital Assets, the CNAD, is simultaneously strengthening technical capacities in digital assets. They're doing this through anti-corruption programs for public sector professionals. This shows a holistic strategy.
It's not just about the hardware.
Precisely. You're investing in the physical technology, the NVIDIA chips, while also ensuring that the regulatory framework, the integrity, the anti-corruption measures are robust enough to manage a growing digital economy. It's like they're building the car and making sure the rules of the road are also established at the same time.
Now, let's transition from these high-level, multi-million-dollar investments to the ground-level reality of small businesses and consumer net. And here we have the colossal problem of informal lending.
This is perhaps the most sobering statistic in all of the national news we're covering. Reports indicate that micro and small enterprises, or MYPEs, are collectively obtaining a staggering $1.25 billion. That's billion with a B through informal lenders.
$1,251.5 million. That figure is not just big, it's an economic indictment.
It is. It highlights a profound systemic failure of the formal banking system to service this critical entrepreneurial segment of the economy. These are the businesses that employ the most people.
So what are the specific consequences when you have that level of reliance on unregulated, informal debt?
The consequences are severe, and they're multifaceted. When small businesses are forced into these informal structures, they're subject to usurious interest rates. Often dramatically higher than any market rate, which cripples their profit margins and just stifles any chance of growth.
And this debt concentration, does it affect certain sectors more than others?
It does. It primarily affects sectors like local commerce, small service providers, and craft industries. And long term, this system just siphons capital out of the productive economy. It increases the risk of business failure, and it creates a perpetual cycle of poverty and dependence. It shows that despite major advancements in other financial areas, like digital assets, access to affordable, formal working capital remains the most serious constraint for local economic dynamism.
On the consumer side, however, we are seeing some efforts aimed at helping individuals move out of that debt cycle, or at least restore their financial standing.
Yes, there's the launch of a new credit card that is specifically designed to help consumers recover their credit history. This is a step in the right direction. This kind of mechanism is crucial for financial rehabilitation. It allows individuals who may have struggled with financial difficulties in the past to rebuild trust with the formal system.
And by doing that, they can get back on their feet.
They can. By establishing a positive payment track record, they could eventually access better loan terms for major purchases, for mortgages, or, and this is crucial, for financing their own small businesses. It could ultimately help bridge that massive gap that is currently dominated by informal lenders.
Another key update involves long-term employee benefits and pension management, focusing specifically on the Christmas bonus.
The government is proposing to make permanent the anticipated payment of the pension Christmas bonus, which is currently delivered annually in October. Making this payment schedule permanent provides crucial predictability and timely financial relief for retirees. It ensures they have the necessary funds ahead of the peak holiday spending season when expenses are typically at their highest.
And we also have a note on retirements in the public sector.
We do. We note the budgetary reality that some 2,000 teachers have opted for voluntary retirement for 2026, which will necessitate some very careful staffing and budgetary adjustments within the public education sector.
Finally, in the realm of financial disputes, we have an update on the fallout from the high-profile Kasabi fraud case.
Yes, the affected parties in the Kasabi fraud case are formally requesting that the superintendency return the cooperative to its members, to its socios. This remains a highly sensitive and extremely complex legal and financial dispute.
What's the core of their demand?
The demand for the return of the cooperative structure to its membership base is a fight for more than just restitution of lost funds. It's a fight for the democratic integrity of the organization itself. The complexity of unwinding a fraud of that magnitude while also satisfying victim demands makes this an ongoing legal saga that we will have to continue to monitor.
Let's transition now to security, justice, and public health, starting with the continued security improvements that have drawn significant international focus.
The statistics, they continue to be a powerful metric of the current state of public safety. El Salvador registered 19 days without homicides in November of 2025. This achievement, it underscores the sustained impact of the government's security measures. A significant and continued reduction in violent crime is really the foundation for social stability.
And that has knock-on effects for the economy.
Absolutely. It increases the quality of daily life, and it bolsters both foreign and domestic economic confidence. It's all connected.
The scale of the government's security actions has, of course, resulted in an immense workload for the judicial system. This is evidenced by the activity of the Public Defender's Office.
The Public Defender's Office, the PGR, reported delivering 468,237 criminal defense services to detainees so far this year.
468,000. That is a staggering figure.
It's critical to understand that number. It reflects the immense volume of judicial processing that's currently underway in the country. But more importantly, it underscores the necessary allocation of vast resources to ensure legal representation is provided to the very large number of individuals detained under the ongoing security regime. It really puts into perspective the massive scale of the legal effort that is accompanying the drop in homicides.
Turning to public health, the Dr. SV telemedicine program continues its expansion.
It does. The Dr. SV program has now been expanded to cover persons aged 51 to 60 years old. This marks the fourth phase of its expansion, and it means coverage now encompasses the entire core working age population spanning from 18 to 60 years old.
And the benefit of telemedicine is really about access.
It's all about access. Leveraging technology for telemedicine dramatically increases access to basic health services across the country, especially in remote or underserved areas. And this helps alleviate the severe strain on physical healthcare facilities. Furthermore, we should note that Dr. SV is incorporating AI-assisted nutrition programs, which highlights a sustained strategic investment in advanced health technology.
We must also address the societal support systems and, on the other side, the budgetary pressures that are facing state oversight bodies.
On the support side, we have Spanish cooperation, providing funding for a program that is specifically designed to assist over 2,000 deported Salvadoran women. This aid is vital. It addresses a critical social challenge by providing resources for reintegration, housing, and job stability for a vulnerable population returning to the country, often with significant economic and social hurdles to overcome.
But conversely, we see a distinct tension when it comes to resource allocation for oversight bodies. The Human Rights Ombudsman, the PDDH, is facing significant budget cuts.
This is a crucial policy tension that needs full exploration. The PDDH faces the possibility of having to dispose of one of its buildings due to budget cuts that are proposed for 2026. And for you, the listener, this raises an important question about resource allocation.
Right. Why is this happening?
Why are critical oversight bodies, such as the Human Rights Ombudsman, experiencing operational budget challenges at the very same time that massive resources are being allocated toward expanding security measures and legal processing, as we just saw with the PGR's high service volume? This tension highlights a potential policy choice, prioritizing immediate security expenditure over long-term institutional oversight and accountability.
Let's summarize some of the recent activity in crime and justice, focusing on major sentences that have been handed down.
We're seeing a multi-pronged effort against different forms of illicit activity. 2 foreigners remain detained for drug trafficking. 15 people were detained for illicitly obtaining cell phones and other devices. And then there was a highly significant sentence involving gang members who were condemned to 245 years in prison.
245 years.
For extorting 24 transport businessmen. This demonstrates major punitive action against crimes that directly affect essential economic sectors. And separately, a woman was sentenced to 6 years for a digital theft involving over $3,000, which underscores the legal system's increasing focus on cybercrime.
Finally, there's a sobering editorial detail regarding daily safety on the roads, this persistent, catastrophic problem involving motorcyclists.
This often gets overshadowed by the other crime statistics, but it is a major public health and safety crisis. The editorial underscores significant, widespread danger. Nearly 4,000 accidents involved motorcyclists between January and November 2025.
4,000 accidents.
And that tragic toll resulted in over 3,700 injuries and a shocking 420 fatalities. This reflects a major systemic problem. It seems to be driven primarily by ignored laws regarding unlicensed riders, a lack of enforcement, and inadequate driver training.
So what's the solution?
This situation requires a really robust policy intervention that goes beyond traditional security measures. It demands attention to licensing, enforcement, and even infrastructure design to reduce this ongoing national tragedy. This is a crucial area where, you could argue, policy failure is translating directly into lives being lost on a daily basis.
We have dissected enormous shifts today, from the depth of the institutional withdrawal from Bitcoin and those critical support levels at 77,424, to the high-stakes pressure on Ukraine and the crucial economic developments here at home, including that $195 million airport funding and the fight against informal debt.
It's essential to just take a moment to process the sheer volume of these interconnected dynamics. Global markets and local stability are deeply interwoven. And understanding these connections is really the key to making informed decisions in your own life.
Before we move to our final analysis, we want to recalibrate and remind you that this deep dive, with its extensive research and detailed analysis, is only possible because of your direct support. If you value this conversation and the depth of knowledge we try to provide, please remember the ways to collaborate or donate through PayPal or the Bitcoin QR code provided on our site. We rely entirely on your contributions. And don't forget our recommendation. Search for our sister podcast, Documentaries of El Salvador. You will find fascinating cases and stories that provide essential historical and cultural context to many of the economic and social discussions we cover here. We really encourage you to seek out that additional insight. Let's round out our news summary with a few final international and cultural notes. On the cultural front, the Mexican Fatima Bosch won Miss Universe 2025 in Thailand, but the event was steeped in controversy that quickly spilled over into the political realm.
The controversy was notable, yes. It involved a juror resignation and widespread claims of a false winner. And this isn't just entertainment news. It reflects how deeply public perception affects these global events. Even a figure like the Mexican politician Sheinbaum commented on the situation, urging the winner to be an example for standing up against what was perceived as an injustice.
So even a beauty pageant becomes political.
It shows how even cultural competitions are immediately politicized and subjected to intense public scrutiny and debate over what is perceived as fair.
We also have an update regarding the legal situation of a major international political figure.
The defense for the Brazilian former President Bolsonaro has formally asked the court for his 27-year prison sentence to be served at home rather than in a correctional facility. This type of request for sentence modification for high-profile political figures always draws intense legal and political focus. It demonstrates the continued complexities of justice systems when they're dealing with former heads of state and the often lengthy appeals processes involved.
Finally, let's circle back to the political pragmatism we observed earlier in that Trump-Zelensky dynamic. You noted an interesting detail regarding Donald Trump's commentary on the mayor of New York City.
Yes, and this detail provides excellent context on how political relationships can operate outside of strict ideology. Despite a fellow Republican, Elise Stefanik, campaigning against and accusing the mayor, Mamdani, of being a jihadist, Trump publicly stated that he did not believe the accusation.
That's surprising.
It is. He specifically called the man very rational and someone who wants New York to be great. This move shows Trump's characteristic focus on specific political pragmatism and, transactional alliances. He appears willing to bypass ideological accusations when a practical, potentially beneficial working relationship serves his immediate political or electoral goals. It's a pattern we see replicated in various geopolitical statements. The immense scope of news we have covered today, it ranges from the institutional panic triggered by the Bitcoin correction, the persistent risk in Venezuelan airspace, all the way to El Salvador's focused investments in technology and infrastructure. And it all drives home a crucial theme. Local stability is inevitably and deeply linked to international financial and geopolitical dynamics.
Right.
The challenges that are faced by a small business seeking capital right here are impacted by global interest rates, just as local air safety is tied to regional military activity.
Exactly, and that's why remaining thoroughly informed across all these spectrums is so vital. We've analyzed high-stakes diplomatic pressure being exerted on Ukraine, and on the other hand, the massive, crippling financial exclusion among micro and small businesses in El Salvador. Both of these issues demand clarity and rigorous critical analysis. Before we close, here is a 60-second summary of the three most important conclusions from this deep dive. First, global economic pressure. The steep correction in Bitcoin, registering a 25% drop in November, is signaling widespread institutional concern. Significant net outflows from United States ETFs indicate that institutions are actively retreating. They are not buying the dip this time. This volatility suggests the market is reacting to broader macroeconomic fears, despite some long-term forecasts of a recovery potentially toward the end of 2025. Second, diplomatic cross-pressure. The United States is leveraging the strategic hardship of the coming cold winter to compel Ukraine into a difficult decision regarding a 28-point peace plan. This places President Zelensky in an agonizing strategic dilemma. Choosing between making profound national concessions, what he calls a loss of dignity, or risking the loss of crucial military and financial partnership during the harshest months of the year. Third, El Salvador's economic path. The country is seeing significant capital inflow directed toward essential infrastructure, highlighted by that $195 million BID airport funding. We're also seeing a strategic shift toward regional industrial development through the Eastern Free Zone studies and advanced technology like the NVIDIA chip project. However, these successes are sharply juxtaposed with the persistent, massive financial challenge of over $1.25 billion in informal lending to small businesses, alongside the critical public safety issue represented by the alarming rate of motorcycle accidents. Thank you for joining us for this extensive deep dive. We sincerely hope you feel thoroughly informed on the complex currents shaping both El Salvador and the world right now. We deeply value your engagement and your willingness to share this content with others. A final reminder that your contributions are what keep this project running. They allow us to dedicate the time necessary for this deep level of analysis. Please consider helping the podcast with your economic contributions through PayPal and the Bitcoin QR code.
As you continue to track these developments, let this be your final provocative thought. The immediate stability or crisis we observe today, whether it's in global finance or in geopolitical conflicts, is merely the outward manifestation of difficult, high-stakes compromises currently being forced upon key actors. What will be the long-term structural cost, economic, social, or political of these compulsory choices? The future is being defined by compromises made under duress right now.
Until the next deep dive, goodbye.